I
Hi.
Did you see how I marked things up, the maps? Did I send that to you? Yeah. Good.
Um, I have not checked my email
Okay.
yet, so no.
I appreciate you doing that, and I think I also just learned how to cut and paste a table.
Excellent. Not that I don't mind doing it for you, but good to know.
Jack Creighton have IMED issue in doc office and try to sign in if possible. Great, great, great. Mike's still on vacation?
I don't know. Good question.
While we're waiting for people to roll in here, I was able to look at the town of Westford regarding their mitigation. And I realized you were probably busy typing and stuff, Tom. So I didn't know if you got a chance to even remotely look at that or not.
No, not yet.
Okay.
If we're putting it off to the fall, it's just got to be out of my mind at this point. You know, I have to I have to just focus. I mean, the judge has thrown some things, at me today that I responded to. I had a long and somewhat contentious three-way meeting for hearing tomorrow. So, I do have to try to keep the bills being paid. Um, but the judge had some constructive things that came back, so it was all good. Text Clark.
I was trying to read my notes from this morning, so
No,
uh, but it's
no, and
like
it's
tough.
just I'll report on what's been going on because there was good follow up to it during the
Yeah,
course of the day, and actually I just sent her something a few minutes ago.
I can't read my own writing.
Yeah, well, that happens. Hey, Mike, welcome back. Have a good vacation?
Oh,
Can I? Yeah, no, thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, it was nice. Did some skiing with a couple of my brothers and one of my nephews, and had a lot of fun. My legs are still sore though, but what can you do?
well, you made it back in one piece. That's the important thing.
Hold on, this is Jack.
With your knees intact too.
Hello?
That's the thing coming down the hills. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal. No question about that. To come back, not
Right
missing
now,
or
I just
broken anything.
texted Clark to see where he is, but otherwise we don't have a forum. So, no, no, it sounds horrible. So, one read. Oh, yeah, here's Clark. Yeah, if you don't make it in the meeting, I'll summarize where we are on there. I made the changes that your board wanted, so I think we're and Carolyn, uh, yeah, yeah, she just suggested to get rid of some language we had in there. So anyway, all right, everybody's here, so I'm going to run, but take care of yourself. Don't worry about tonight. All right, bye. All right, Jack isn't going to make it. He has a contact lens issue, and he's in a doctor's office right now and can't see. So call to order the meeting of the zoning bylaw committee for March 25th, 2024. Roll call attendance.
Clark Brewer here.
On Callahan here,
Michael Dickey here.
David Farag here.
and Cassandra. Okay, of course. All right, I want to bring you quickly up to date and then jump into some things. So between, I met with the select board last night. They were 2 hours past our scheduled agenda time, but we got to things. And so, and no disrespect, but the town hall sucks all the oxygen out of the room, and I told them that. But um, the we talked about some things and town council involvement. Town council was put under a deadline to get some reviews of things, and they've done that. This morning, Dave and I had a conference call with Judge Cutler that the select board set up. And during the course of the day, the judge and I have exchanged some emails and texts, and a lot of things have been going on. So let me just update you. This morning, Carolyn gave us the review of the parking bylaw. And other than, comments about the references to the new district names, there wasn't a lot of substantive change she suggested. But if I did circulate some edits this morning because there were a number of places in the existing bylaw that we had the word that to just be sufficient parking for uses that would have like employees, but just would have customers doing kind of drop-off things or they were outdoor venues. So we'll go over that in a second and take a stab at she said, put some numbers on them. As far as the meeting with the selectmen went, the select board went, they wanted us to change the parking for the village and the harbor to one space per bedroom rather than one space per unit. Made that change. What else did I say in that?
Can you say that again, Tom? What is the change? A parking space per bedroom?
Yeah.
Where?
In the village and the harbor.
In the village and
the harbor, if there were, well, the village will have residences, the harbor, not the way we're pursuing the zoning for the harbor, but their focus was on the village, and we had the discussion about whether there's a zoning problem or just a space problem that the town has to find ways to developing more parking space. But so, and then we also discussed the idea that it's not residences in the village that are driving the parking problem. It's the commercial uses, particularly the hospitality uses, that are driving the issue. But nevertheless, I don't think it's a problem. It is a priority for the select board to change that, because the village currently is one space per unit. It'll be one space per bedroom.
so wouldn't that kill future projects?
Well, I had a discussion with one selectman about that, and I said, the bylaw was put into for a reason, to encourage mixed use and encourage more economic development of properties, because the village 20 years ago was kind of getting moribund and dying. And
Right.
But there is a sentiment among a number of select board members that we need to put the brakes on further development. And if this is what the result of putting the brakes are on a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and the other thing is
we
to
can
think about
use zoning. We can use zoning to kill, whatever
Yeah.
we need to kill.
Yeah, no, we incentivized it for the village, and we got a lot of projects. And really, realistically, the gas station is permitted. Whether that permit will survive the 2 years and be picked up by somebody else remains to be seen. But, are there, other than tear downs of existing buildings along Main Street, there are not a lot of opportunities for extensive development. We seem to have accomplished the goal of what the bylaw set out to do 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So I don't have a problem with doing this. And if it's going to get us select board support. We discussed the issue of employee parking, and we agreed that it's kind of built in. And again, it's a space problem. You got to have a place to put these employees. But nevertheless, Carolyn, hearing that meeting on Zoom, you'll see in her edits when we get to the table, she put in for a few locations, a few types of uses, an employee requirement, so including the restaurants. So it won't change necessarily the restaurant issue in the village, because they get the benefit of that 500-yard rule. But it's so I think we've, and Woody had brought up that, and I said last week that, research of other towns is very few people actually deal with employees as a separate requirement, but we have, and we'll get to that in a moment. So then The other thing that came up with the meeting with the judge today is, I think, it prevailed upon her that we would go ahead with reorganization, and now she has been given the appendices for the consolidation of the articles to see how that would be written. But her focus today was on the consolidation of the districts. After our meeting this morning, she went and rewrote that article. I just a few minutes ago sent her my edits, some fill-in things that she was looking for me to sort of amalgamate the two versions of it. So I think it's in a better form. I'll show it to you in a moment. And I think, we can still go ahead with that. She is at the moment, I think as we speak, possibly working on tweaking the border zoning bylaw. And so that will go forward. And then we all agreed after a lot of discussion that, we are just not going to be able to put mitigation and development impact together in time for the spring for the changes that she thinks needs to be done. And so that will be postponed to the fall, but she promises to the zoning board and the planning board that she will point out the tools that we have to extract mitigation under our current rules and statutes. So we'll look forward to that, but that will have to be put off to the fall. What she is not going to be able to help us on, and we are going to discuss tonight, is the switch to FAR. But so we're on it, we're flying on our own with that. But again, we have extensive amount of data to back what we are proposing up. So I'll feel comfortable going forward. And if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. I mean, we're where we are today. Oh, and I went to the rec fair. We were kind of pushed down, the town boards were kind of pushed down to the one end of the hallway. Not a lot of engagement. It was, I'm beginning to think in the future that that's probably not the best forum for this kind of engagement, because everybody, Clark included, were there with their kids, they're occupied with their kids. And at least the Alternative Energy Committee was giving out pinwheels, so maybe we need to get a pinwheel or some kind of niche.
I got a chance to talk to David for a few minutes just before we got our pinwheels.
Yeah, I saw you there, and then somebody, you happened to be there at maybe the one or two occasions during the whole afternoon that somebody was talking to me about it. So, I circulate, Cassandra, you did a great job with the flyers and the display materials. Now we have them for another time, but
There was a lot of baked goods this year there. A lot of food there this year more than ever.
Yeah, there was a lot of temptations for the diabetic there, and there were a lot of service dogs there, and and the performances with the kids doing different things were in the gym on the opposite end. So we were just on the wrong end of things. But
you didn't want to be in the face painting section.
No, but last year we were like kind of right in the middle of the hallway, and we got a lot more engagement last year than we did. All right. Anyway, no further ado here. Let me start with We'll start with this, with the parking. So one of Carolyn's comments when we had all the redlining and crossouts, that it is probably neater and cleaner to just do this as a full repeal and replace rather than try to redline this one, because the significant redlining was the table, and that's very much changed since we're adopting, we're conforming it to the new Article 4 table. So in that, I've highlighted where Carolyn pointed out, well, first let me go down to the one, just show you what the other thing was. Where's our residential uses? Residential uses. So 3AC in the Harbor District, again, I consolidated some categories from the Article 4 on the left side of this table, and then took the corresponding existing provisions. And the existing provisions that would have applied to 3A, the harbor, and the village would have been, the harbor said 1.5 spaces per unit, and the village said 1 space per unit. So to meet the select board's request, Both of those now read one space per bedroom. And the exception, of course, down here is for the multifamily district, which we've all agreed to keep it within the model, will be 1.5. So that's the significant change that the select board wanted us. So nothing else was really changing except, where Carolyn was pointing out, and you can see the existing language, like for these open air uses. So for open air, I'm just suggesting, who's going to be on site. There's going to be an employee or two. So this is where you might mention employee. And then Carolyn's suggestion in her note was either pick a square footage for interior space or, or square footage for a land area for an outdoor space. So you'll see for the childcare facility, we made it one space per employee since it's mostly employees will be there all day long, plus one space for 200 square feet of net floor area, which is what we use in some other uses, as you can see right below. So
Tom, in the block above, that doesn't read properly to me. One space per employee plus one space plus one space per. Is there should there be something between the two plus one spaces, or just a do?
That's a typo, yeah.
Okay.
So for the example of this outdoor use, the question is, how many square foot of land area do we say that you need another space? 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet? Yeah. I'm open to suggestions, but Carolyn thinks we should get rid of the sufficient. And I agree. I mean, that's loosey-goosey, and who knows how that's applied.
I had a question on the village one, though. Right now, from where we were, 20, 30 years ago when the village bylaw came into play, the only other open space that I can think of is behind the building that Bia's is in. Obviously, where the gas station is permitted right now. Whether it goes through or not is another deal. Is there any other space that's open, developable minus a knockdown and rebuild? Is there any space over, behind?
No.
That's the only one, right?
That's the only one. But the only other significant space in the village is along the tracks behind the teen center, but the town owns that, and that's where I keep telling everybody is build more spaces.
Behind the new building in Smith Place, there's an acre.
But it's part of that property, and it's part of it is part of that property that goes out to Smith Place, and it's part of its parking, and it's an emergency entrance. Two Smith Place is the other remaining large possibility. A few years ago, what was it, Clark? Maybe 2-3 years ago, I was already on the planning board. So the current owner floated an idea of like 10 small townhouses, separate structures.
They once had a mega building, but I think it was only 16
units. A long time ago, there was a mega building.
A three-story apartment building.
Yeah, so I mean, Two Smith Place is still a possibility for development, but it also, I think, would have the room to accommodate the one space per bedroom rule, and maybe it would lessen the size of the development.
Yeah, most likely it would.
Yeah. So those are the two main spaces, and again, the select board is sending a signal that maybe it's time we put the brakes on things, especially too in the harbor, because not that the harbor is going to have more residential use since we're not expanding in that, but they want to kind of put the brakes on things.
The building that French Memories is in, I think those are all ones upstairs, the apartments there. So if that was ever to be a significant rebuild, and there is some, space underneath or out back where they would put parking if that ever happened. So I can't think of too many buildings that would be redone or dropped to be redone that you know what I mean, from what their current configuration is.
At the space behind Bia, I'm assuming since Wayne owns the building, Wayne owns that space. And that space is used for I think the apartment tenants and the commercial tenants for their employees. So, I don't necessarily know that I mean, he would have to remember to try to accommodate all of that as well. And just next door, Clark knows that we just permitted a new building, a new residential structure behind 31 South Main, right next to Bia. And, originally they were looking at 2 apartments, but now I think it's just one added, and there's 2 there, and there's going to add 1 more. And they can accommodate everything on site.
So
There might
do the selectmen universally want to put the brakes, as you say it, on development?
they want this village parking changed.
Yeah, what about the non-residential parking requirements?
Well,
Right now, it
yes,
says there is no requirement for non-residential if you're within 500 feet of the lot.
correct, and they didn't address that, and I've suggested to them, particularly when the issue of employees comes up, is that, well, you got to have a place to put them.
So
And
doesn't
again,
that, I mean, doesn't that discourage residential development and encourage commercial development based on the parking requirements?
yeah, except that the village is required mixed use. So it's going to be,
Yes, I mean, of course.
so it's always going to have a residential component.
I'm not going to make the case for it, but I would say that I think it's not exacerbating the residential
No,
parking issue. In other words, so if you had more units up top, and if it's 1 per bedroom, then you're covering basically every one of those people on site, versus kind of having some spillover to the because the commercial already has the spillover, so it's not it's lessening the exacerbation less than killing the village zoning.
And I pointed out to them that everything that since I've been on the planning board in 20, everything we've permitted that's new down there has on-site residential parking. Every one of them.
Well, it's required 1 space per unit.
Yeah, not at 1 space per unit, but at 1
It's
space
required
per unit.
now at 1 space per unit. It
Right,
hasn't changed yet.
So, and there was I've heard talk in the past, like you mentioned the building over French Memories, that people in some of the older apartments along Main Street on both sides are parking in the town parking lot overnight. Well, I don't know if that's true. 31 South Main is going to accommodate their people on site. They accommodate the 2 apartments now on site.
Well,
we just talked about
aren't
Wayne's
they
people.
existing non-conforming?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Wayne's tenants are on site, and I don't. The other side of the street where the Barrel and Dave, you pointed out they're just 1-bedroom apartments. I don't know where those people are parking, but I don't think that's what's creating the major issue.
No.
And they have to. One of the things Dave and I talked about with the judge today, she goes, well, you really need some specific examples of things you want to mitigate. And we said, well, I can tell you one is parking. And we have space, and it'll be expensive to expand that space in the village. And, to get mitigation and to get money towards that would be great. So she's been told that that's one of our objectives, and, sidewalks, and we have a sidewalk committee. But, the whole thing about the mitigation thing was being a little bit more specific than the first draft, and that's fine. I understood that. So anyway, so I think, this is fine. If we see that this is putting a real death knell to the redevelopment of properties in the village, it can always be switched back.
Yeah, I don't think it will, but we'll find out. I mean,
Yeah,
the commercial. What has happened is the village bylaw that, and I know some of you were there when it was created. Clark and Tom, everybody. It's been so successful that it's created so much commerce downtown that it's filled up the parking lot and then some. I mean, when I must tell you, when I was downtown on a Saturday morning, and there were passersby, there was a lot of them from Hingham and Situate on a Saturday morning, which you wouldn't even think of. So we're getting a lot of action from out of town even on those times, let alone
visitors.
Yeah, visitors, exactly. But you wouldn't be thinking that at breakfast time. So it's successful. The businesses have been successful. The Seabird Coffee, all the rest of them on downtown. So we've got the spoils of success that that we don't have enough parking for it at this point.
right.
Just one point, you've got government use in it's the last item in open
Yeah,
space section.
yeah,
And if our just because I know this, our town hall is 21,000 square feet.
yeah.
So we would, if we were building a new town hall in place of our existing town hall, we'd have to have 100 parking spaces, and we only have 60 now. That's just an example.
Right. That was
So is
taken from,
200 really the right number? I mean, if it
well,
was
that's
150, and then that would be 75 parking spaces, even though we only have 60. Obviously, it's existing non-conforming at this point. But if we were to create a new town hall, would we have to comply with this
well, the,
one space
the,
per 200
yeah,
square feet?
well, I mean, this number is, I didn't reinvent anything here. These numbers came from the existing bylaw.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering.
If town hall goes to One Pleasant Street, it's subject to the One Pleasant Street permit, which said that it needed X number of spaces for the office use there.
Yeah, you don't need any spaces for the stores, offices, or other lawful in
Yeah,
the VB
let me just,
district.
yeah, let me just go down for a minute and see what
But
the
you
office.
but you do need one space per residential unit in the VB district currently. So I think for offices that the One Pleasant Street can depend
All
on
right.
the big municipal lot.
Now, here's the business uses, and this is taken from the existing. So, which includes offices and professional offices. We have one space per 100 square feet, except on 3A, it's one space per 200 square feet.
And
So
government use is allowed anywhere in town.
right. So is one space per 100 good enough, or do you want to raise that 200 to something else?
You raise it.
Or take this, well, take this approach like we're doing with the childcare
Well,
facility.
right now, just as just in the example, right now our town hall is one space per 120 square feet of net floor area.
Mhm. Yeah, and One Pleasant Street was subject to one per 100. So what's the right number to put here? Is 200 too much? I mean, if we want to make it consistent with the office use, then this would become 100.
100.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue making that 100 for the government use. I mean,
No, and it's like I said, it's consistent with the office use that's
yeah.
also in the bylaw. All right, let's just get to these sufficient ones and knock them out of the way. I just wrote in the number 5,000 square feet for these of land area for these outdoor uses. All of these kinds of uses are, transient visitors with, partly regular employees on site and very few of them to begin with. Is this acceptable? Yes.
Yeah, I just, are you looking to delete the thing that you've just highlighted and replace it with what's in red
Yeah,
underlined, Tom?
yeah,
Is that?
because that's Carolyn's suggestion. She thinks sufficient is too arbitrary and too loosey-goosey.
Well, yeah, but let's use an example. Open space recreational use. Let's talk about Wheelwright Park. Okay, that's 170 acre. Call it 200 acres with the Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary. 200 acres times 43,000 square feet. So one space per 5,000 square feet of land area property would be like, I don't know. Let me just do the math. I got
Yeah,
a
no,
calculator.
well, here's the other thing. Again, remember that grouped together, I grouped together the Article 4 uses to not make the table unreasonably long.
So that
You
would
know,
be 1,700 parking spaces.
all right.
Do we really want open space recreational use for
Well,
Wheelwright Park to be
again, what I was
1,700?
about to say is I could take those last two categories of conservation and open space recreational, separate it into a separate category, because that doesn't.
Cemetery also, I don't see a lot of parking needs at a cemetery.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
We have three, right?
All
In
right,
town, three.
I can go back to Carolyn and say, we don't, in this particular category, we don't think we should
But this,
change it.
but this would be if you're making a new one though, right? I mean, so it's not, we're not making a new cemetery for the most part. When
No,
Right. I
no,
mean, even private conservation. Okay, so I'm on the conservation trust. We have like 200 acres and 30 different properties. And if it was 5,000 square feet per
all
parking
right, all
spot,
right, that's fine.
it would
yeah,
it's
This
it's
is,
a little insane. Again, the example of
this is
Wheelwright Park,
simple, this is simple,
1,700 parking spots.
this is simple.
yeah,
We leave it the way it is.
Sufficient, I think, in this case is reasonable.
Correct.
yeah.
And if Carolyn has to, I don't imagine it's ever had to been defended in court. And if she has to defend it in court, so be it.
Yeah, the
All
one I
right.
would be,
All right, I want to
yeah,
keep going because we
yeah.
got a lot to cover, all right? So
Okay.
the childcare facility, now that's different than an open space use. So
Yeah, I think a more scientific formulatic approach is more applicable in that type of a situation.
Okay.
So I can live if you think the formula makes sense, I can live with it.
Well, again, in a regular office use, it's 1 space per 100. Again, the customer usage of these facilities is going to be transient and short. So I don't think we need
Yeah.
to have the same number of
It's
spaces. They
it,
really have to accommodate their employees more than
it
anything else.
it can be transient and short, but intensive for the time, the
Yeah, yeah.
drop off and pickup times. It'll be backed up.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't even know if we have any childcare facilities left.
We used to. I don't know if there's any left. Yeah.
All right, the next one was
I think we might have gotten the math wrong. So using the town hall example at 20,000 square feet, if we divide that by the 200, that's 100 parking spots. If we divide 20,000 divided by 100, that's 200 parking spots.
yeah, we got to go in the other direction.
So you made it 100. I think it needs to be 300 or 400 in order to be pretty close to what we have now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes. Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah.
How
I
about
don't know about
500?
500. We
Yeah.
did the math and it was opposite.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought going lower was an issue, but all right, so let's make it 500 and go with that. All right, the next sufficient was a veterinarian. Again, it's like a child care center. You're going to have employees there all day. You're not really
Yeah, but
going.
you're gonna have people bringing their pets in, and they're gonna need parking while their
Yeah,
pet
I
gets
know. So
taken
that's
care
why
of.
1 space for 200 square feet. I think that's
Okay. If you think that's the right number, I can live with it.
the next one was more outdoor stuff. Um, we already had 1 space per 200 square feet of indoor space, and then the sufficient for outdoor space. Again, this might be one where we push back on Carolyn and say we don't think we really need to manage the outdoor space to that degree. I mean, let's think about the places we have in town that would meet this. The 3A Garden Center, the one down by, across the south end of town. That place gets pretty busy. But it has a good size indoor space that it has to meet this 1 space per 200 square foot requirement. What do we have for auto dealers? We have Capizoli, we have used car dealers. We don't really have an auto dealer. We don't have a marina anymore. Well, we have one down the end of Parker Ave, but they've got parking. And again, I don't know that adding on to the indoor space requirement, given what we have in town, is necessary. And if sufficient becomes a problem, that's for the lawyers to figure out. I don't, so I would almost take this out.
Well, let me, you got the sign. It's not 1 space for employees only, right? It's based on the net score.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that makes no sense to me there. Because the bigger the property, the more spaces you're going to need. So why add another qualifier that says that if you're bigger, you got to add more space? Doesn't the 1 space for every 200 square feet kind of already deal with the bigger it is, the more spaces you need?
It's dealing if for the indoor space. So the
Oh.
garden,
They have smaller indoor spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, the garden space, the garden place on 3A has a very large indoor space. So that probably, and it doesn't have a lot of parking, but it's probably being met, or it's either grandfathered, but, you know, but I don't know,
Oh
think
yeah.
of another,
No, yeah,
think of,
yeah. No, actually, yeah. I'm sorry. I missed on the indoor space, but certainly, seasonal. But the bigger the marina, the more parking spaces you're going to need in the summer, and yet your marina office might be quite small.
yeah, the
Right.
marina at the end of Parker Ave is a trailer, and so
Ah,
it's small, but that place happens to have, to me, as I've observed over the years, always had enough spaces to accommodate the users because they're not all there at once. Um, but I don't know. Just tell me. If you want to add a space per so much of outdoor land area, let's do it.
yeah,
I don't.
I'm okay with that. I just would have no idea what the right number to plug there is, you know?
Right.
Well,
Yeah, it's almost the same issue like the boat actual storage, even like if it was stored there in the winter, that's like some boat yards, parking in the summer and then boat storage in the winter. It's a huge area where there isn't a lot of parking demands. Like I know at the boatyard down in Plymouth, they use up all the parking spots for boat storage outside, but it doesn't matter because they only need the parking in the summer.
yeah. I well, is this reasonable? Or do we leave the sufficient thing and just again tell Carolyn we just don't think it's that much of a problem?
Yeah, I mean, boatyard marina, that wouldn't would that include the yacht club?
Well, the yacht club is perpetually a problem.
They run out of parking spots there, right?
Yeah, regularly.
But they're never going to change. It's never going to grow. So you just can't put in a competing yacht club. Um,
And the sailing club is the same issue that, you know, particularly if there's an event or if it's a very nice Saturday, it's going to be busy and they're not going to be able, they don't accommodate anybody on site. They accommodate people on that circle and then on Government Island. And, you know, you know what?
I
Again,
mean,
I
could
don't,
you leave the first phrase, take out the
yeah,
red, and then put plus sufficient additional parking spaces?
yeah, that's what it says now. And that's what
Okay,
she's
all
suggesting we
right.
get rid of it. But I don't think we need to get rid of it. I don't think it proves to be a problem and it's never been, challenged per se. So, all right. And
Yeah.
the next is a purely outdoor sports facility. So it has a smaller space per, well, the indoor space,
One
100
space
square.
for indoor space. That doesn't quite make sense.
No,
You
one
seem like
space per 100 square feet rather than 200. And probably, because it's
right, but
going,
it should be more like 800, right? But it says
no, no,
for
no.
indoor
It's going to
space.
be 100 because you want to get more spaces out of that limited, you know, again, we don't have any outdoor entity. Well, we have Split Rock, but they're in the village. But we really, what do we have? The golf club,
Well, I don't know
and
much about
and
the golf club, but I know about the soccer building up on the top of the hill, up
Yeah.
yeah, but
Cropper
that's
Lane.
that's that's different than there's a municipal property. But we have the golf club and the yacht
No,
club.
it's on a that's not municipal. It's the former Graham Waste building.
Yeah, it's got
Oh,
inside and
that
and
place. Yeah,
So
outside.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
got
Yeah.
25,000. I know because I designed the building. It's got 25,000 square feet of indoor space. So if we,
And
uh,
outdoor too. And outdoor.
yeah, so
Yes.
we'd
Yeah.
have to have 250 parking spaces and whatever we'd need for the outdoor soccer field, which is, what is it, like
All right. Well,
100,000
then,
square
then,
feet,
then I'm suggesting
50,000 square feet.
this is another one where we just stick with sufficient because again, it's never been an issue.
Yeah, those sports facilities, they tend to do both indoor and outdoor. Most of them, So I can't imagine we might get another one.
But again, I
Um,
think 100 square feet is the wrong number
yeah, yeah.
for for using the Crocker Lane example
All right, then
because
make it like everybody else,
we
and
would
it's
have
200.
we would have to have, well, maybe the 400 or 500. We would at 100, it's 250 spots. At 200, it's 125 spots.
Which if they have a
At
full soccer,
400, it's 60 spots. And I don't know how many there are on
yeah, I
site.
know, but then you're going back to, well, again, these places are grandfathered, but the golf club and the yacht club are
I'm
different.
not going to say the thing about grandfathering again.
They're not, yeah, no, whatever. Like until I land with a new term and get comfortable with it, I'm not. All right, let's just leave this. We'll move it up to 200, maybe 250. I don't
Well, what do you
know.
have for town hall? You've got 500 spaces, 500 square feet per space for town hall.
Well, we use 200 in a lot of different measures. Yeah, the governmental use was 500. All right. I don't want to beat this. I don't want to again spend all night on this.
Well, it's important to get the number right. We had the number opposite before, and if we're
Okay.
going to submit it,
All right.
so that would
And
be
then
100. If you
yeah, and
made
then
it 200 square feet, that would be 125 spaces.
yeah. Well, I just changed it to 500.
Well, yeah, I mean, the outdoor look, I don't want to belabor it, but an outdoor sports facility beyond having the training they do tournaments, they do all sorts of stuff. So they do need more spaces, but I can't imagine that there'll be another one built in town because I don't even know if there's a space anywhere.
Right.
Unless they're going to start knocking down buildings or somewhere because but
Yeah, but 500 might not be the right number. Maybe it's 300. I don't know. You could put it in there and hey, if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, right?
300. Okay. The pet care is like the rest of the other kind of uses we've had. So employee plus space.
Yeah, I can deal with that. Yeah.
And then this, even this, the solar, I just said like, okay, what is the solar facility going to have? It's going to have an employee maybe when they visit, and then, service trucks when they visit. So I just arbitrarily threw these numbers rather than sufficient. And I think that's, so that's 4 spaces at a solar facility, a large solar facility. That's probably more than enough. And it would be the same as a wind, yeah, solar and wind. I mean, none of those have employees there 24/7. So
Yeah.
that's fine. All right, let's move along. What else did she? She pretty much went through all of this. The old diagram is still there. She didn't really change the access standards we wrote, so that was one thing, one thing she wanted me to clarify was this one here about. She did make a change in here is to not have like here, not to have too many other authorities like the building inspector and fire department having a say so over things, but um, this was just to put for A&Rs, this was just to put a presumption of adequacy just based on the road size, not adequacy for all purposes. The A&R analysis about whether the way is adequate involves a number of factors, but the purpose of this is to take out the road width thing because we just had this on Black Horse Lane where it was started out with a 12-foot wide access road, and it's up to what was it, 18 and 20? Or 18 or 20 is the final product, I think. But I was saying we can make a presumption. So this is the road that's older road built prior to the subdivision control law. We can make a presumption that the minimum pavement is 16, and that would be adequate. We could even approve a lesser one if the fire department says it's okay. So she had nothing to say about that. So,
Was this your idea?
well, if you remember, I've been talking about having some regulations about roadways for a long time, and had borrowed a Plymouth bylaw that, so You access a residential property either by a common driveway, by a subdivision road, or a road that was built long ago before the subdivision control law. Those are the only three ways to get there. So this just sort of states the obvious, but in terms of an A&R,
At least you have a standard for an A&R.
yeah, we have a standard that if the road was built to the subdivision control law applicable at the time, fine,
Yep.
that'll be deemed adequate. If it's built according, well, common driveways can't be the basis for an A&R, but, and then for the road that's built provided, just an arbitrary number of 16 feet, we know that 12 feet isn't adequate, but, 16 can be okay. Our fire department seems to be somewhat generous on that. They don't absolutely insist on 20-foot wide roads everywhere. So, if you want to change that to 18, that's fine too. But Carolyn didn't have anything to say about this. So, all right, then with that all done.
So you added that?
Yeah, I'd added it originally because, the judge in her diagnostic, she took some of the things that were in this part of the law here, these A, B through N. She added this, by the way, the handicap spaces. And we discussed that a few weeks ago, whether they're included within the required number or not. Then she moved some of the stuff that was in that alphabetical list into this section 7.3. And then she's the one who suggested adding this 7.4. And I think because she knew we on the planning board had been discussing it for a long time. And this driveway reg was already existing. It's just moved, and she suggested we move it to this point. So, yeah, it's kind of half my add-on and half her suggestion of moving things around and reorganizing it. So, all right. With that, I guess we should just have a formal vote on bringing this forward in this form to the planning board hearing. I'll send the final product to Carolyn again tomorrow and just tell her where it still says the word sufficient, or we're just pushing back and we don't think it's a big issue. So,
and the planning board would have a chance to discuss the
correct.
Numbers again.
Correct. Absolutely.
So I'll make that motion.
All right. Second.
Oh.
Second, I'll second it. All right.
I thought you were going to second it, Tom.
Okay. No. So all in favor of approving this to go forward in the process? Roll call vote.
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Mike Dickey, aye.
David Farag, aye.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, if I find something that's outrageous after really looking at it in a public hearing, you're not going to get mad at me, are you?
No, Clark. I'm only going to get mad if you bail on us tonight. That's all.
Well, I don't have any other meetings scheduled for tonight, but it would be great if you focus on keeping us moving.
I'm trying to. Let's not beat the things we don't have to beat to a pulp. So, all right, let me stop the screen sharing of this one. All right, so what should we do next? Blah, 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 blah. All right, so I'll just quickly, the exchange with the judge tonight on the organization that consolidates the districts. She's just redone how the vote would go. No, actually, this isn't that. This isn't the newer version. Sorry, but she and I have to just work that out. And I guess the planning board meeting's a week from Wednesday. Maybe we'll meet real briefly Monday and just.
Tom, in terms of the highway business, have you done the analysis of the different district requirements, and what are we going to do when we
we're
the
marijuana,
the medical marijuana up in the technology business district? Is that going to be allowed anywhere?
We're going. I mean, remember the 3A once was all highway business until these other things got added on, and some of them were targeted for Cohasset Heights. We're going to go back to the highway businesses dimensions and the highway businesses uses. So I think it was business, but I'll double check that. Let's double check medical marijuana.
Deal with the medical marijuana.
Do we have any medical marijuana places?
Because there were, when we passed that originally, you know, it had to be like hundreds of feet from a school, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah.
if it, again, if it disappears as a use with technology business, then it disappears.
Well,
Period.
I don't think you can do that.
Well,
Is the point I guess I'm making. I'm
that's
not
what I'm
for
making.
medical marijuana or any other kind of marijuana. Just, you know, I'm just saying. It's just that that was a place where we shoved the medical marijuana, thinking probably that it was the least impact on our community.
Yeah.
Compared with the entire strip
and that's fine.
of,
That's fine. I made a note
of highway business districts.
Well, I guess the question is if we dissolve some of those other districts, can it go into an overlay district if we create it? You know, so that
Yeah,
it
that might be a
stays.
mechanism, but
Well,
it still
let
would need
me
to be
just
figured
double
out. We
check.
couldn't
Let me
just
just
let it
double
drop
check.
off.
Yep.
Let me just double check if it's an allowed use in highway business, right? And then we'll.
It's
you
not.
can-
Medical marijuana is not allowed use in
All right.
highway. In
It might
highway,
be.
it
It
was
might be.
only. I mean,
In
we
the,
only did it to comply with the new law.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So maybe it's just a more simple amendment as part of this process. Another step is just to say and to add the use, that one use to the uses that'll be allowed in the 3A district. 3A
Well,
club.
again,
I
maybe
don't,
we don't want to have
you don't
medical
want
marijuana on the entire highway business
that
district on
you
3A.
you're creating. In other words, it was created to, you know why,
Medical
to
marijuana is not a threat like retail marijuana. If medical marijuana is in a controlled office environment with people who are professionals, I think it's a much different issue that you wouldn't even know is there as compared to the,
It
the
is,
pot
but
shop
I
in
think
Market.
Dave's suggestion of an overlay district for it perhaps might take care of the
All right,
problem,
I
because you
know,
can't
and
just drop it off.
I'm already getting my head chopped off by the judge that this is too complicated because she doesn't want to deal with it. And I don't want to add to another
Well,
overlay.
yeah, it is complicated, Tom. And I mean, I'm just
It's
bringing up
not. It is
one
not that
example,
freaking complicated.
and
I'll
now
shove it in
you're,
the,
and
you know what I'm gonna do?
I share your,
I'm gonna add it, I'm gonna
your
add it to use.
disturbance.
I'm gonna add it to uses in the village and we'll see how that goes.
Well, that's not a good idea. Jeez, Tom. What
Jesus.
the hell?
All right, I'm going to
Oh,
double
that was a
check.
little zoning bylaw committee humor, was it?
I will
Just make a
double,
note. Just make a
I
note.
will make a
Carry on.
note and I'll come, when we meet next Monday, we'll have a solution to it. So let me just see what the other one is. Let's just, what are we gonna share now? All right.
We didn't have to have regular marijuana because we were like below 50% when we voted for it, right?
All right. All right. Before we get to the substance of FAR itself, um, here is, um, here is, let's make a decision once and for all in large home review. We discussed it, no, we discussed at length last week that even if we switch to an FAR measurement, we could still have large home review that is triggered at 4,000 square feet. The question is, do we want to continue it as a site plan review process, understanding that in the FAR article, we're also building in you can exceed it a little bit and by special permit rather than have to go for variance. Do we want it to continue or do we not? If it's to continue, it just needs a couple of textual changes right here to deal with the fact that we're switching to floor area ratio. So otherwise, it's still going to be triggered by 4,000 square feet. You're going to do an FAR calculation. If that calculation leads to a house that is 4,000 square feet or better, you're going to be triggered by the site plan review of large home review. I know I've been a big advocate for getting rid of it, but in light of the way other things here are developing, I don't care either way.
Well, Tom, can you explain your thinking on how FAR replaces large home review?
It doesn't. It gets us out of the business of site plan review on certain sizes of houses. If we want to stay in that, that's fine. I think part of the problem is the public is not educated enough to know when they come to a meeting that it's not a yes, no
Well,
situation.
that public doesn't know a lot of things compared with the things that we
All
have
right.
to deal
All
with
right.
in these regulations.
All right, no, I get that. So executive decision here would be to keep it.
Well,
And if,
I mean, I don't know. I
and
mean,
if it,
FAR is an additional standard that has to be met.
yeah,
The
no,
large
it's
home
still good.
review, could we have something better than the large home review, like coffee and cookies, neighborhood coffee and cookies?
Well, that's what it was like for so many years, but let's just make this simple. Um, vote for will be to keep it and just amend the language to accommodate floor area ratio.
Well, I guess the question would be, if we
That's
keep the
simple.
large home review, what would we do? We
All right,
want
so
to move to get rid of it in the future?
we could. So
I mean,
here's how this.
I think it's
Wait,
rather
here's how
it's a rather irrational, unpleasant process. At least my experience on the planning board. But you
here's
know,
the
it
thing.
does bring up salient issues like the
Okay.
last one we did
Uh,
on Sawyer Street, where a driveway was going to be installed right where kids are coming in and out, and there was
okay.
reasonable concern about buses and kids and
I'll just give you
construction
a
business.
remember, large home review applies to houses that are otherwise buildable by right, and it just puts a site plan review process in for houses as of right that exceed 4,000 square feet. Okay. I'll give you a concrete example of Clark that you and I had last week. So we had a new
I just
house.
brought it up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You weren't listening to me, were you,
I
Tony?
was. My mind, Clark. My mind is going in a million directions. I'm sorry.
Let me say something.
Okay,
Either
maybe this
So,
isn't the best time. Maybe this isn't the
anyway,
best time to X-nay the
anyway,
large home A.
anyway, the house that on Sawyer Street we dealt with last week is over 5,000 square feet on an over 55,000 square foot lot. It had a FAR 0.1, which I think is what I'm getting to proposing for RB. That house would have been allowable as of right, even with the new switch. But by keeping FAR, keeping large home review, because it's over 4,000 square feet, the resulting FAR generates a 4,000 plus square foot house. We will get to do site plan review on it, and we will get to impose the conditions that we imposed on it last week, which were rather unique because of the proximity where they want to put their new driveway is right where the school crosswalk to Deer Hill is. So there's a benefit. That was an example of a concrete benefit of what large home review can do. So that's fine. I'm all in favor of keeping it, and it just needs these small textual
I
changes.
guess the question is if we keep it, is there a way to give it teeth or
No,
necessarily?
no.
No, there isn't.
The teeth. The only thing that's teeth is
Conditions.
special permits and variances where there is yes, no decisions that can be made.
But
And
no, the site plan, we can establish conditions. Those are the teeth.
correct,
Those have always
correct,
been the teeth,
right. And that was
or at
amended
least since 2017.
yeah, it was amended to add some of the criteria that had been lacking for a long time. But it's the
Well,
same with site plan, it's the same, when we deal with the MBTA housing, that is going to be a site plan review process. We're not going to
well,
get to say yes or no. We can condition the hell out of it,
yeah,
but we're not going, it's not a yes or no process. And
yeah.
for
Well,
yes, and this goes back to when large home review was originally conceived. We originally conceived of it as a special permit process triggered at 3,500 square feet. And it was correctly pointed out to us that no, that 3,500 square foot house is allowed as of right. You can't trigger it. You can't trigger a special permit within, unless you're changing what the as of right number is and lowering it substantially. And we didn't do that. But we're going to, with this FAR change, have an as of right limit. And we're going to have a small, you can exceed it by special permit, and then you'll hit the variance wall.
yeah, yeah,
But those are where the real teeth are because the
yeah,
board can deny a project.
yeah,
You really can't deny.
yeah.
Actually, the judge was explaining us today, by the way, Clark, on a commercial site plan review, that ways that, when we were talking about mitigation, ways we can effectively deny something by conditioning it to death, or or telling them they can't just meet common, they can't meet Board of Health requirements, they can't meet stormwater requirements, something like that. But in reality, it's not a yes or no process. But I don't mind. The example we just had on Sawyer Street was an example to keep it for a very
Yes.
large as of right house, and especially because of that one's unique location.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the site plan review that sticks with it because it at least it allows you the conditioning to make it harmonious with the neighborhood and make it fit. Because and then also with the FAR that would be coming up, if your special permit to exceed that, then there you go. So I think between that, you've got a good belt and suspenders on that to
Yeah.
keep it the way it is. And you
Okay.
got to remember the biggest thing that now that's a special situation when you're talking about a driveway and the access point, but most times it's the drainage. That's what people are worried about the most. It's the abutters with the drainage, and that's covered with a stormwater permit at the Concom. So I think between all of those, that would cover a lot.
So,
I'll leave it there.
but these numbers, you've got floor area ratio of 0.12.
Yeah. These are the
Wow.
median. These are the
That's-
median. Well,
That's tight.
I thought about it.
The
The
village is
original,
1.0, right? And you can
the,
go up
the,
to 1.3.
the original, well, the village, an urban situation is different than what we have.
Oh,
That's
okay. Yeah, sure.
you'll find that the FARs in the residential areas for like Brookline and Newton who use FAR are going to be higher, but they're also dealing with much more housing density than we're dealing with.
Yeah. But
So
using Windy Hill example of the 20,000 square foot lots, then those houses would have to be half of what they were, right?
well, they're undersized to begin with. Yeah, they have to go
Yeah,
also.
yeah, they were undersized. They were 20,000
They
square foot lots
somehow
in a
they somehow
35,000 square foot zone,
yeah, they
residence B.
somehow escaped Article 8 review. But um, when I originally wrote these numbers, I don't know if I had a brain fart while I was typing or not, but they were overly generous. And when I saw that Sawyer Street project, and I saw that it was calculated, the architects, I will give them credit. They're all putting floor area ratio on these things, whether we ask for them or not, which is, I guess, now becoming the norm to put them on residential plans. But that house worked out to a 0.10. It was 10% of lot coverage.
Yes, that's
And,
right.
and as I argued in that memo, the threat here is that our 20% coverage, when only measured two-dimensionally, can lead to something humongous. But that the data is showing us that our town doesn't come close to covering 20%. But Mark and I know from the planning board, and I'm sure Mike does in the zoning board, the trend is for people to start pushing the limits and pushing the
Well,
limits.
here's the problem with
So,
setting that so low, Tom.
well,
And,
it's
and
not,
and it may
it's
not
not,
be a problem, but there's a landmark land court case called Bylaw versus Brookline. And Bylaw versus Brookline, Brookline's kind of urban. There was like a two-family house that it was in an area where the floor area ratio had to be 1.0, and they were proposing to, and the existing was 1.2. They were going to add dormers to a third floor, which would make their floor area ratio 1.3.
okay.
Okay. So they were already existing non-conforming, and the landmark cases, if you have a non-conformity, you're allowed to increase the non-conformity. So my
Well,
concern with these numbers is that if a substantial number of existing homes, these would be irrelevant to. And then
I'll look.
they would only apply to new homes. And then, we could
Well,
look at some examples. One example is Sawyer Street. Another example would be Windy Hill. I don't know
the
if you have any other
bylaw,
thoughts on large home reviews that we've done in the past.
Article 8 says that you can increase a nonconformity. I know that
You
no,
can.
I, well, I'll read the case again. I mean, I remember reading it a long time ago, but
Villalta?
yeah, I know. I know what the case is. I just made a note of it too. The number
Anyway,
that's the
it's
number.
interesting. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think Villalta is brought up by the ZBA very often in discussion about existing nonconformities.
No, I'm certainly not aware of it,
So,
but
here's another way that it works. If you're in an area where your front setback is 20 feet and you have a house that's 15 feet from the property line, you could increase it to 10 feet. You could increase, once you have that existing nonconformity in a single family house, you can increase it.
yeah, but as long as
I,
I mean, the test we use in the ZBA is as long as it's substantially not more detrimental to
That's
right.
the
right.
neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a special permit standard. It's not an automatic. I mean, that's what the whole point of every town's bylaw that's like Article 8 for non-conforming. Everybody has a bylaw like that.
Yeah,
I,
but
I'm
here's
not
the issue. I mean, somehow you didn't want to balance out existing nonconformity with the numbers.
okay.
And could we find a similar town that uses FAR, so we could get a sense for what other towns are using as opposed to the last project we looked at on the
No,
planning?
that's not what I'm judging this on. I'm judging the last project we looked at just told me that the number I originally wrote down was too generous. These numbers,
Exactly.
these numbers are based on the medians we are experiencing in our development through 2021 when the data was gathered by Cassie.
But Tom, are we really targeting the median? I mean, wouldn't it be the median plus 50% would be the thing that you'd want to be targeting?
No, Clark,
Why?
because you're
Clark, I thought you were going to ask for the median times 3. That's what I thought.
you,
I thought you
Clark,
were
Come
going to
on,
ask
that's only
Clark, you're
0.5.
Clark. The bylaw is not supposed to be an expression of an architect's wet dream, with all due respect.
Oh, come on, that's rude, Tom.
No, it's not rude. It's
Yeah,
exactly
it
what's going
is.
on.
It
We're
is,
not that
and I'm not going to hang up on you. But here's
the
the thing: we're having a discussion, and I'm asking, are there any other towns that have this ratio that are similar to ours?
no, not
And
that I'm
how does it
aware of.
work? Okay, so you're a pioneer, but I
And
don't
I
think
don't
you
care about
understand the
being a
impact
pioneer.
of it. And
Well,
I would want to see a lot of examples of how it could be applied, not just
The,
Sawyer Street, the last thing the planning board looked at.
the impact is that we are incorporating a number that matches the town's development to this point in time. And that we are saying that going forward, we want houses, the three-dimensional measurements of houses to be in proportion to their lot size in accordance with how we've developed to date, which includes large houses. When this is not going to
Yeah,
prevent,
I hear you, Tom. I hear you. You're
all
saying
right?
the same thing. I'm just asking for examples, and you're saying they don't exist. You're
the,
applying a brand new
no,
restriction.
Oh,
We
it's not
already
a,
have a bunch of restrictions.
FAR is used in the
um,
Commonwealth. Maybe because Hingham doesn't do it. That
Okay,
doesn't
no,
mean
but
that
let's
we
just
we
find
can't
me
do
those
it.
towns and then let me know what the numbers are
Yeah.
relative to their lot sizes. I mean, I know about Brookline, but it's a semi-urban
I said to
environment.
you last week, when I talked to the engineer in my building, that in his experiences, smaller towns haven't gone in this direction yet. They're all
Look,
looking at it.
here's the deal. Yeah, I'm an architect, and I've been advocating for some flexibility, especially for
And I think you're out of
existing
tune with this.
non-conforming and older neighborhoods. But but that's
I think
that's what I
what
do. That doesn't mean it's just I look at things as an architect, knowing the problems and realities of trying to create something of value for people on complex properties.
and
And an
my
additional restriction is going the other way. So
it's
I
not a
guess I'd
restrict.
say
It's
I'm not for it unless you can prove that it's not going to really screw things up for people,
it's well it's
because
it's
you're
again.
taking value away from
Oh
each
please,
individual homeowner.
that's I can't tell you how many times I've had to argue against that argument.
Well,
The,
you have to back up what you want to
no,
do based
you
on
automatically,
what it actually would do to actual real world situations.
it would continue development in the town along the
But it's
scale.
you're using the median, and I don't think that's uh, I don't think that's the right standard.
It is if
If you want every
you
house
must
to
be
match
reading
the
Clark.
houses
All due
that
respect,
across
all
town
due
are average,
all due
we do
respect.
not. We want to legislate that all houses are average from now on. That
No, we want to legislate that we don't want mega structures in the town to the scale that we're beginning
If
to see.
if
You are, with all due respect, I
well, let
think.
Dave talk, Tom. Come on.
No,
You make
I
your
just want to make one point. I think you're in a minority viewpoint in the overall sentiment of the town on this. I don't
I
think the
don't know.
town
Jack
wants
might think so, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
it's a good debate point, but the issue is if we go high, you're what you're doing is, and again, this is I'm just explaining from is that you're expanding mansionization in the town, and when you do that, it makes the town even less affordable because the bigger the house, the more expensive it is, the less affordable every other house becomes as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes a race to the top. And so the little houses that get there, they get bought, knocked down to be replaced with even bigger houses. So the pendulum has swung, in the last 20 years through the development that that all the houses have become less affordable, and people have, yes, done wonderfully fantastic, but the people trying to move into town, they aren't here because
I don't.
they can't
I,
afford to be here.
I mean, what was that Norwell decision? But brought oh, what's his name?
But that,
Steve.
but
of Bjorklund.
Yeah, the Bjorklund one
yeah,
was that it was an anti-mansionization land court decision where the town uh bel ha asserted through the land court, the town asserted their ability to create sort of affordability by not by decreasing the ability to mansionize. And I get that, but I don't know if this floor area ratio is necessarily an anti-mansionization expression.
no, I'm
To me,
I'm
it's
just saying
more
as
just an additional restriction
yeah,
that guys like me are going to have to deal with and tell our clients, sorry, you can't do anything.
as a policy out. I'm telling you, it's a policy outcome. If you
Yeah,
lean
maybe.
more to bigger houses, that's what you're going to get. And the other
Well,
thing is,
we still have the lot coverage above this, and I can see it's
No,
been
we're
reduced
not
to
going to have,
25% from 30%,
you're
and it
going to,
looks like you cross out 20%.
yes, that you don't have lot coverage for the primary structure anymore. That's exactly the ill you're trying to get rid of because that, if built out to the max, is the threat.
the FAR switching to it, as we've talked about before, it is to create some proportionality of the house to the lot.
I get it.
And
No, I get it.
you can certainly argue that, say, in an RA district, 0.12 might not be the sweet spot. It might be 0.14, it might be, maybe it's 0.10. But at the end of the day, you have to decide on somewhere to go and go from there. And with the statistics that Tom gave, you don't agree with the median, which is fine, but at least that's, at least one sensible approach. There might be others, um, but at least to start off with, I think you want
I mean,
to have FAR to at least get that proportionality in town.
if, for example, with that Sawyer Street project, if it was 0.14 or 1.5, that house would be massive.
Well,
And
again,
and they're
I
invited,
think what you're
besides the
doing is
large
you're
home,
taking value
no, you're not taking
options
value. You're
away from
taking,
individual homeowners by
well,
having this FAR.
well, that's what zoning is all about.
Don't call me names now, Tom. Come
No, I'm
on.
saying that's what zoning is all about. It's about a community saying how it wants to regulate itself.
No, but Tom, this is you saying what
You
you want
know,
to do,
it's
not
the
the
law that
community.
you do
The
not.
community didn't jump up and down and said, "Hey, FAR."
Yeah,
How
well,
how Clark
we're
Clark
going to
from
test it with
wait
a
a minute.
vote. Okay, we're going to test it
Wait
with
a
a vote.
minute. Wait a minute. How long have you been on the planning board? Clark, how long have you been on the planning board?
Long time. Why?
Long time. So with the large home site review, how many abutters have you seen come to the large home site review about the house being too big next to them?
Not
I mean,
very many. I mean,
not
you
very many. Okay. I mean,
not very many. I mean,
Everyone,
usually people are concerned about lighting and they're just worried about change. So being able to see what's planned ahead of the shingles going on, it is generally enough. I mean, there's some people that would never be happy, but they're in
th-
the minority,
yes,
maybe
there are some who would
less than
want nothing.
5%
There
of
were
the
some who
overall number of large home reviews I've seen over 16 years.
there were some that would want nothing. Most would want nothing built. But
Not necessarily most, no.
the concern is the size of the house that's going next to them. That's what abutters are concerned about. And that's what happens every time a building permit gets
I
pulled
think it's
for
a
it.
little bit more complex, analysis than that. How big it is, how well detailed, where are the windows? How does this affect me? My driveway there going to be blind spots created? You know, there's like any issue that an abutter might have. I don't think that size is the only factor.
No, all of those are all quality of life issues. But I can tell you from being on the Concom, we had hearing after hearing packed with people about what was going to be built next to them. And in their case, it was about the drainage most of the times. But yeah, no, there is a concern out there in the community about it, and I think that there's a rational way to approach it. But we can't argue.
I'm not
Yeah,
advocating for building, 5 feet off the property line as large a house as you can.
yeah.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just
that's-
saying I don't know what these numbers mean as applied to um our neighborhoods right now, what the percentage of existing non-conforming would be. If it's the median, then I guess half of them would be non-conforming and half of them would be conforming. So is that the right number? And I can bring this point up again at our planning board meeting and since
yeah.
and we'll have to see. It would be
But
great to see practical examples of this applied.
there's the data right there. There's the data. The scary data is up here. Is what happens if you build out to the max of a 20% lot coverage. Then you're getting a horror show. And no, we don't do it in this town. Friends are in that direction, but we don't do it. We're not there yet to the horror show. So our average lot coverage is here in medians, and then when
So
you
I mean, it's more
and
fear-based zoning,
then
not
you're here's where
actual
here's
dealing with
where
real problems.
yeah,
Fear-based zoning, right?
it's not fear-based zoning.
Well, I'm not going to sign off, but
Of course
do we
you're
really
not
need
going
to
to sign up.
discuss this anymore? I mean, I'm making a point. You're saying you're wrong, Clark. Forget it. Give it up.
No. I think I'm not saying that at all. I mean,
Mark, I would
you've
have expected if you'd stuck around, I was expecting you to vote no last time. The timing when you walked out was right when we were going to do the
Oh,
vote.
I was 15 minutes late for my other meeting,
So
but
now, all right,
I
well,
was
fine.
getting chewed out by Jack, so I didn't really want to stick
It was
around.
going to be a 3-1 vote last week, and it was going to be a 3-1 vote tonight. So let's just get on with it. You know what? This is
Well,
for the
you're
community.
assuming what your other zoning board members are going to be
Because I,
zoning bylaw committee
yeah,
members are going to
because
vote.
I know what they did. They know what they were prepared to do last week. So just
Okay, yeah, sure. We don't have
no,
to
I'm
talk
just
about it
saying. In
anymore.
the
You
end
want
of
to
the
take a
day,
vote? What are we taking a vote on?
in the end of the day, this is for the community to decide. Okay.
Well,
You
I
know,
mean,
well,
the
the
only
other thing
reason
is this. The
I'm
other
talking
Yeah.
now is because I'm trying to advocate for the people that aren't here and trying to understand on the floor of town meeting what people might be thinking in terms of this and what I would say about it on the floor of town meeting. But
Clark, you're making some good points, but I would say
thanks.
you've got to no. I mean to have a good debate about it, it is what is the number? How do you come up with it? He showed the math that he's done. We can disagree on it about where it should be. Should be, on the spectrum. Should it go a little bit more to the right or to the left? but and when this goes to town council, or if it goes to town council, they can certainly look at it, and they've got how many towns, 150 towns that they've got. They might be able to pull out some other ones as well and say, geez, your town
Well,
is close to
well,
this,
oh, okay.
close to,
I mean, I'm not trying to interrupt David, but he's
yeah,
got highlighted right here. The average is 0.22 for A,
yeah.
0.16 for
Yeah,
B,
I'm
0.14. That's the average, not the median. But you reduced these below average and median.
no, I'll tell you, I'm going to show you exactly how that came up. So,
So,
I think,
on
no,
number 5,
listen,
those numbers aren't correct.
as I looked at them more closely, I didn't do the original research. I'm not going to say, but they don't appear
I
to be
mean, maybe
correct.
there's
No,
a
no, no,
case
no, let
for
me,
average, but you're
let me
at
go.
like half of average.
No, hold on. So let's look at the number up above. House size average for residents say the median's at 2847 divided by 18,000 square feet, which is the requirement. All right, that's 0.15. All right, 3823 divided by what is 36,000? That's 0.10. And
But again, these numbers are half. You're
no, no, no,
advocating for half of what is average.
no, I'm going by median. Okay, 5106 divided by 60,000.
You're going by 50% less than what is median.
No, I'm not. I just told you. So that median, 5106 over 60,000 divided by 60,000 square feet, which is the requirement for C, is 0.08.
But that's for
0.08.
conforming lots. Most of the lots aren't conforming, Tom.
Right, and that means they are going to be in proportion to their size. And
Well, no, no, they aren't.
the
No,
one
they
at
aren't. I
Sawyer,
mean, it
the
seems
one at,
like you should use average, the actual average, not the imaginary average of the median house size and conforming lot size.
okay.
Look, we don't have to
All
talk
right, no,
about
no,
this
no, no,
anymore.
wait a
If you want
minute.
to just
No,
take a vote, go ahead.
no, I just want you to know what the number would be. So I use that average house size.
These
That makes,
averages are twice what you're proposing.
no, they're not, Clark. Will you just stop for a second? Forget 5. Just going on this. Number 4.
No,
Average lot.
I like 5. It makes my point.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
being too restrictive, Tom, and you're taking value away from homeowners.
No, because 5 is wrong. Whoever calculated it, it's wrong.
What?
It's wrong. It's
Why?
too. If you just let me show you the math for a second, you want
No,
to
you're
use
saying a median 5106 for
no. I'm
residency for a
let me
60,000 square foot
stop.
lot is less than 0.9. I
Uh,
get it, or 0.8, whatever you
Clark,
came up
Clark,
with.
can you let Tom make the point, and then we can move on from this and
Point
do it? Thank you.
the average lot size. You want to use average instead of median. Okay, for RC, that yields a 0.09 FAR. Now let's go to the next one. 4124 divided by 36,000, 0.11.
Okay, Tom, but RC, all the
3071,
RC lots aren't 60,000 square foot average. They're all different sizes.
0.17. So
They're all different sizes.
yeah, I know, and that's the whole concept of FAR is to make it proportional to whatever
Well,
size you have.
okay, but what if you took the average RC lot and the average house square footage? What would that number be? It wouldn't be 0.8.
I don't know that we even have that data or could even
We
get
should
that.
have that data.
Why
But
should we?
you're taking a zoning standard and applying average actual house size to it, and those aren't the same numbers.
Yeah. So using the numbers I just read, that's 0.01, 0.11, 0.9, and
Well, I
RA.
just don't like this FAR. So if you want to take your vote, go ahead.
I mean, if just with the numbers I read, that's what the FARs amount to, and RA is the most generous.
But
And the
that's with
RA,
the zoning, the minimum zoning lot, instead of the average lot size in residency, it's the zoning lot size. So you're taking an actual average and then a zoning minimum. And I would think we'd be able to get that data from the assessor's office.
Cassandra, did you hear that?
I can ask them.
What we want, the average lot size in the 3 residential districts.
Okay. I don't
I
know
don't-
if they'll be able to provide that information, but
Yeah,
I
and you
can
know,
ask.
I don't know that that's the appropriate measure either. I will note that like in Newton, and I think
But it would be good to know, right?
in Newton,
Sure.
in Newton, they provide for each of their 3 residential districts a sliding scale of FAR based on the lot size.
I mean,
So-
personally, I think the
So
zoning
for
size
example,
for lots should be pretty close to the average in the areas, the districts that they are. As opposed to an extra large arbitrary one, which is supposed to control new
yeah,
development.
but that's, you know, the extra large arbitrary one is one the town set 36 years ago for whatever reason.
Clark, I'm having trouble understanding stuff. Is your concern that it's just easier and simpler and more people understand just a kind of a square footage cap, or is it something that, or is it you're happy with a FAR, you just don't think that the FAR caps that Tom has laid out make sense?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is it's a new zoning restriction standard in addition to our lot coverage, which was intended to be a way to manage bulk on any particular lot, so that there's not a lot of open space and their neighbors don't get they're not peering into their living room windows from their bedrooms. But the FAR, it's just a new standard that of restriction that I think affects value. And it turns out it's not even the average or the median. It's what I think is fairly arbitrary, the zoning district minimum lot size, which might not be average, and the house size, which would be the average. But I think it should be slightly more flexible than what the average is.
Again,
So-
flexibility because you want more development and
No,
larger
I don't
development.
want more development, Tom.
Well,
I'm
that's
not
what flexibility means.
pro-development, as Jack says. What I think is important is that people in Cohasset or anywhere else can achieve reasonable value with their properties and
And
do
that-
reasonable things. I mean,
So,
the zoning board deals with stuff all the time. Somebody wants to add a bedroom
So,
and they're,
so,
10
so
feet
All
away
right.
from the property line and they want to be 8 feet.
so Clark, you're telling us you don't get paid by the square foot.
I don't.
Okay.
But the other part of this is this.
But builders like to build big houses. I mean, as an architect, I try to take a conservative approach where I'm not trying to build the biggest house. I'm trying to solve the problems for a reasonable cost that the client has. But do you think because I'm an architect, I'm a part of the problem with house size?
Are you talking to me? No.
Yeah.
God,
That's
no.
it.
I've worked with architects throughout my whole career, let alone the builders and everyone else. I've been on both sides of the aisle on that. I've been on the town board side and I've been on the building side. So, no, absolutely not. Have
Okay.
great respect for architects and what they can do.
I
But
wanted to be one originally.
I would say with this though, I guess the question is are we ready on this, or does it need to be reviewed, or what would be to get it to a higher state of review? Do we need some assessors numbers on this, or where do we need to go on this so we can move on?
I will get assessment number, but the other thing I just wanted to point out is that we
Yeah.
also decided to build into this an ability to exceed it by special permit to give that flexibility. so that you don't hit a hard variance wall necessarily. Anyway,
So,
Yeah.
so you had in residence A, you changed that from 12% to 17% just now?
that's what the numbers reveal. I think it's too high because that's going to lead to a larger house on a smaller lot,
But
but
you just upped those numbers to the median.
to the average, Clark, I switched it to the average for your benefit, and it changed RB very little and changed RC very little. It changed RA more substantially. And RA is more of a denser village setting like Brookline and Newton confront, so maybe that is the right FAR for that, but it does, it is what it is. It's closer to our 0.20, our 20%, 0.2 lot coverage, and it has. The only good thing about it is that it's still measuring the bulk, where if at the 20% lot coverage, you can do that at times 2.5 to 3 floors, and then you have a very large house.
Oh, okay.
The
So
current, the
by the
current rule,
numbers,
the
by the
current
numbers,
rule,
Tom, you have an 18,000 square foot conforming lot you want to build a house on. Doesn't have anything on it right now.
Hmm,
You apply 0.17 to it, you can build a 3,000 square foot house. That includes the garage.
that's what the
If
numbers
you really
reveal.
want to make a 3,300 square foot house, you can apply for a special permit.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then after that,
I
we
have
hit
an
the wall.
1,800 square foot house and I don't have any garage. I don't have any basement or attic either. But, and it's kind of tight.
Well, how big's your lot? How big's your lot? Where are you, in RB?
I got a 40,000 square foot lot.
See?
But I'm talking about the 18,000 square foot lot that's conforming to zoning. 0.17 allows a 3,000 square foot house.
You're in RB, right?
No, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about
No, I'm
our
just as an example.
residential A. I'm in my house is in residential A.
You're not in big.
Look, I'm just not into this FAR. If you want to take a vote, go ahead.
No, I'm, how big is your lot again?
I will use the example of a conforming lot that's 18,000 square feet.
That's
I'm
the
not talking
measure.
about my house.
No, but you want to know how it's going to impact people who don't have the arbitrary number that the town set years and years ago of what our
We're not
minimum.
talking about my house, Tom. I'm not talking about my development rights, my personal interest. I'm talking generally about the public at large.
Let's say you're in residence saying you have a 15,000 square foot lot. You could take,
If
you
I
could,
if I could just pipe in while you're doing this and we're playing with the calculator, could we maybe think about, and I don't know if this would agree with Clark or not, to move it on to town council, have them review it, and then
they're not going to get into a super big review of this. They told us
no,
that.
but I mean at least to cleanse it, but
Yeah,
subject to the final numbers on what they should be, and we could at least
Yeah,
move on everything else
that's
and
good.
just
But one more example, a 12,000 square foot non-conforming lot would be limited to a 2,000 square foot house. That includes garage.
yeah, if they can build under Article 8. If they could even expand, if they could tear down and expand under Article 8,
I'm
then
just saying, I don't think this makes sense.
why? Because it's a small lot. It shouldn't have a large house on it. That's what proportionality means.
Yeah, but lot coverage does that.
No, it doesn't. Lot
This
coverage,
is intensely limiting for lots, just by the
12,000,
numbers, doing the math.
all right. A 3-story house on a 12,000 square foot lot built out to the max 20% coverage on our current zoning would yield a 7,200 square foot house. That would be obscene. That would be obscene on a 12,000 square foot lot, but that's what our current zoning leads
Yeah,
to
and
possibility.
2,000 square foot of house is not realistic in this day and age.
Well,
Not in this town anyway.
That's right. Not if you want an in-house office.
That's a whole nother problem.
So go ahead and vote. I don't like it.
All right, I'm going to get some additional data and report back to you next week, but I'm comfortable with this data and I'm comfortable that we're being more than accommodating. Because we're following the numbers that are,
Can you go down to number 5 again?
which is what?
That you had the average FAR and median.
I don't think those numbers are correct. I took the data without that somebody else on our committee did, and I didn't re-examine it myself.
Right. Okay. So those numbers are even bigger than what your revised proposal is. The average.
Yeah, but look at the ranges.
Well, I can see there's a range, but we're trying to set a control that is
Yeah,
reasonable.
and the
If
control
we're
is,
trying to set a control that's reasonable, then it should be average with at least 10% flexibility.
which is what it's doing. The bylaw is creating that. You'll have 10% flexibility by going for a
Well,
special
it should
permit.
have 10% flexibility built in.
Why?
Okay, so it's 0.22 for residence A. If you increased it to
I
0.24
don't believe
and
those
then
numbers,
allow a special permit to go beyond that, that's okay with me.
Clark. If you do those average numbers in 4 over the minimum lot sizes required in each district, they don't yield the numbers that 5 says. Whoever did the math that led to 5 is wrong.
Okay.
Okay, because we just went through the math exercise, and the math exercise yields
Well, it may have been based on actual lot size as opposed to
If we could do this, because
zoning lot size.
it's already 8 o'clock, and I don't like doing the math on a calculator on the fly on a bylaw. So if
Good.
we could maybe move on and do one, and people might have other thoughts on it, but do a couple things. If you want to vote on it, it would be everything except the final numbers of the FAR, so at least town council could cleanse the rest of it. And then subject to the final numbers that we can calculate, get some assessors information and go from there. If not, if we just don't want to vote on it all, that's fine. We can bring it up a couple weeks from now after we get the information
David, we're going to have to resolve this by next Monday, so we're ready for the planning board on Wednesday.
Then if you do that, like I said, you can vote on it subject to the final numbers not being approved, or we can wait till next week, one of the two. Then that seems to be the.
I'm going to see if Cassandra and I can get the numbers from the assessors that was asked for. And in the meantime, I'm going to, again, you heard it as well as I do this morning. They're not, town council isn't going to do a lot of heavy lifting on this article.
I know it's not going to be heavy lifting.
I know. I'm going to send it. I'm going to
Yeah,
send
yeah.
it to them tomorrow again to take a look at.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely, because I want them to be
Yeah.
comfortable with the special permit built-in process that we have and all.
Okay, well let's just leave it till next week then, and we can do both of those, and that'll be it. And if there's nothing else left in the agenda at this point, it's 8 o'clock. So,
All right.
Was that a motion to adjourn?
I think that's the last thing on our agenda. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, we're all set.
Okay. Well, I think it was a good spirited debate about it, and I think that's good. I really do. I really do, because I mean, everything on a bylaw, the worst thing is if everyone agrees on it and shoves it right through, then there's something wrong with it. There needs to be a good, the best steel goes through the best fire. So whether it goes or not, at least it's being heard. But I'll make a motion to adjourn, and then we can deal with this next week.
Second.
All in favor?
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Mike Dickey, aye.
David Farag, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks
Bye,
all.
Thanks.
guys.
All right, see you next week.